Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's event, Building a Mentorship Program that Transforms Workplaces. You could have been virtually anywhere in the world today, but we are so happy you decided to spend the next hour with us. So before we start, it is National Mentoring Month, and we are thrilled to celebrate with you all. We've created some amazing resources like our 2025 Mentoring Playbook and much more. If you want to check them out, go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen to the docs section. It's right next to the messages section, and you can dive right in. All right, let's start with introductions. So I'll go first. I am Nyla Herbert, Content Marketing Manager here at Chronus. I have the privilege of crafting and sharing stories that spotlight the incredible work we do with mentoring, employee resource groups, purpose, and much more. Next, I'll introduce our subject matter expert today, the amazing Jodi Petersen, Vice President of Customer Experience at Chronus. As Vice President of Customer Experience, Jodi leads a team of professionals whose daily mission is to partner with Chronus customers to achieve their mentorship-driven goals. Customers are at the heart of everything the team does. Jodi brings extensive corporate experience and a proven track record in creating and leading successful mentoring programs. She founded MentorStrat after developing and implementing strategies for a Fortune 50 mentoring program. Her achievements include securing a place on Diversity Inc.'s list of top companies for mentoring. So just a quick look at today's agenda. So we did the introductions. We will dive into why mentorship matters, challenges with mentoring programs, the recipe for successful mentoring programs, overcoming engagement issues, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. Now, before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about Chronus for any of you joining us for the first time today. Chronus is a purpose-driven development platform that offers mentoring and ERG management software to help enterprise organizations combat the disengagement and organizational connection crisis. We've helped large enterprises, government agencies, nonprofits, and academic institutions do this for the last 15 plus years with a platform that makes customers feel secure, supported, and ready to scale. If you'd like to learn more on how we can help your organization build a purposeful development strategy, click the Talk to Our Experts button in the right corner of your screen at any time during this presentation. A couple of quick housekeeping tips before we move on. If you have questions for us during today's presentation, feel free to put them into the Q&A section of the chat box to the right corner of your main screen. If you'd like to share thoughts, comments, and connect with other participants today, that is what the chat section of that box is for. The messages box is for personal one-on-one communication and is often used for direct follow-ups from the webinar. But if you're unsure where to put something, just drop it wherever is easiest and we'll make sure it's addressed at the right time and place. Now I'm going to kick it over to Jodi to get us going.
Hey everyone, hope y'all are doing great today. We are going to dive into first why mentorship matters. Nyla, can you? Yep, thank you. All right. So when we're thinking about why mentorship matters for organizations, I don't think it's any secret to you that there is a disengagement, crisis, I guess, if you will, going on at least in the US today, but I would assume across the globe. And this costs company money. I mean, it costs them in replacement for people who leave the organization, in recruiting, in lost productivity, and it's a big problem financially in our organizations. One thing that we know is that mentorship can absolutely help with that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. But first, before we jump into our content, I'd love to know more about who is in the room here today. So we're going to do a quick poll. Really, what challenges are you using mentoring to tackle in your organizations in 2025? What are your plans going into the new year? All right, looks like Disengagement and connection, stalled productivity, votes are still coming in. Burnout, lack of belonging, attrition. Okay. Votes everywhere, but more so for disengagement and disconnection. Okay, so you're in the right place. We're going to talk about all that today and how to leverage mentoring or build an effective mentoring program that can help you tackle your disengagement. All right. So when we think about mentoring, formal mentorship programs within organizations, the research across many years shows that mentoring makes a big difference. And even more so now when we're thinking about what modern mentoring strategies can do, different programs for different reasons within organizations. Employees who are in mentorship relationships have increased engagement, increased satisfaction with their jobs. And we all know that that turns into increased retention and productivity, right? So all of that flows through to many metrics throughout your organization that are important to you. One healthcare academic hospital that we work with has leveraged mentoring to make a huge difference in cost avoidance for their organization. And this is true for organizations of all sizes. So in their case, they were able to boost their retention rate from 89% to 89% from 74% for people who weren't in the mentorship program. So if you think about what that cost, like almost the cost of doing nothing in your organization is, think about the cost to replace an employee. It's about 6 to 9 months of their fully loaded cost, salary plus benefits and all of that. So even if you think about it in terms of like a small 100-person company, let's say, that boost in retention would be over $1 million in savings annually for that organization. So with mentoring, the cost of doing nothing is much more without the program. It's really not even close to what you have to invest to have a quality mentorship program versus the cost of doing nothing. It's almost a no-brainer to me. When I think about mentorship, it used to be that mentoring was more informal. A senior employee would see a junior employee that had potential, and they would kind of take them under their wing and develop them to train them up to be like them, right? We know now that mentorship can be used as a strategic lever in your organization for a variety of different reasons, and it should be used not to bring someone up in your own image, but to help that person be the best version of themselves, be successful in who they are and what they bring to an organization. And so we think about here at Chronus, we think about mentoring as like a strategic lever along that employee journey from hire to retire. So what an organization needs from, say, their leaders is different than what they need from like an early career individual contributor and so on along the employee journey. So a lot of organizations can benefit from taking a multi-program approach, smaller programs integrated into your overall talent or leadership development programs that are meant to do a really specific thing. And people often ask me, what is the right number of programs for an organization of XYZ size? They're telling me how many employees they have. And the truth is that each organization is unique and has its own culture, has its own heartbeat. And so what's right for one organization might not be right for another. So I worked with a company when I was running MentorStrat that had 150 people in their organization, and they had 3 programs. They were really specific, designed to do several things that their organization needed. And so mentoring is not a one size fits all kind of equation. And that's where we come in and really helping you guide you through what is right for you. Our consultants within our organization help you identify what programs you need, how to integrate them into your overall talent and leadership development strategies, and how to design the right programs for you. If you have a program or you're thinking about having a program, a lot of times there are organizational challenges that happen. So despite the high ROI that mentoring brings, sometimes challenges arise. When you think about those challenges, we use, there's, do any Google search and you're going to find blogs or articles with like the 10 most common challenges when you start mentorship programs. And that's because it's true, right? So these are some pretty common challenges that we hear from prospects who have existing mentoring programs. Really, a lot of times the overall objective or their goal when we ask them about it will be, well, our goal is to have a mentoring program. And so sometimes that leads to like a lack of clear objectives. Stakeholders really don't get it because you don't understand, or maybe they're not bought in because they're not understanding the benefit that a well-designed program can bring to the organization. Sometimes we hear poor matching of mentors and mentees, especially if it's done manually. There's a lot of, not only does it take a lot of time, but there's a lot of bias that can be introduced into the matching process if it's not done with a specific formula or algorithm. Inconsistent engagement and commitment. We hear a lot of, our relationships turned into coffee chats. We didn't know what to do anymore, or my partner ghosted me, which is the worst one actually. And then a lack of measurable impacts. Again, kind of tying it back to your goals and objectives. If you have really clear goals and objectives that have a measurable outcome, then you can measure those impacts, and then that helps with stakeholder engagement, and the whole thing kind of flows through. So I want to just ask you guys to, when you think about mentorship within your organizations, if you have programs, let's take another quick poll. Which of these program challenges feels biggest for you this year? All right. Votes coming in. Lack of clear objectives, low stakeholder engagement, poor matching of mentors and mentees. Yep. 10 votes on inconsistent engagement and commitment. Okay, we're going to talk about that. That's actually an area I'm super passionate about, and one that's often, there's a pretty a planned fix for that, and it's a step that's often missed in the process. We're going to talk about that today. All right. Great. So let us go ahead and dive in. There we go. So we're going to talk about a recipe for successful mentoring programs. I've given a lot of these talks. I've talked about successful pillars. I've talked about successful components. Today I'm going to do something different because it's feeling kind of fun. So I'm talking about what is the right recipe, how to build your mentorship program. So what is that recipe for success? So we use a 5-step process here at Chronus: align, design, launch, guide, and measure. And we use this process. We go through all the components of this process, whether your program is small or large, or regardless of what your objectives are for your program. And that's to make sure that we're building the right program, but also that we don't miss kind of anything, which would lead to some of those challenges that you heard about. So the first step is aligning mentoring with your organizational goals or objectives. So let's go back to the recipe analogy. Let's say that you're hosting an elegant dinner party. So if you're going to do that, you aren't likely to go unprepared and, like, when your guests start arriving, break out a pack of hot dogs and make them at the last minute, right? Instead, you would think about, like, what kind of vibe you're trying to create. You think about who your guests are that are coming. What are their likes and dislikes? Are you celebrating anything? Are there any allergies or dietary restrictions? You think about all of those things. And only then would you align your experience, your experience you want to create with your guest needs. And then you'd start to plan your menu and choose your recipes, taking into consideration things like what ingredients are available in your area, what is seasonably popular during the time that you're hosting the event. So all of that. So like I live in Wisconsin. It can be a super costly adventure to serve fresh seafood, but lake fish is a staple in our area. So if this party was going to be to celebrate a really important milestone, I might splurge on the seafood. Whereas if it's just a non-celebratory event, we're just having friends over for dinner, I probably wouldn't splurge on the seafood. So thinking about those kind of decisions in mentoring programs are the same. You have to think through your objectives. You also have to consider what your learners need. So what does your company need? What does your learner need? What is the organizational culture? And what kind of stakeholder support do you have before diving into designing the program? That's before you even think about, is the program one-on-one? It's going to last 6 months. It's going to last a year. So oftentimes people jump into their design decisions before they really take time to define the purpose of their program, align it with their organizational goals and participant needs, and secure stakeholder buy-in. I was working with a healthcare organization, and they had like both the business side of their business, and then they had the clinicians, so doctors, social workers, nurses. They came to me and they said they wanted to pair social workers, doctors, and nurses together for like cross-functional mentoring. I said, okay, great. When I started to dig deeper into their why, I asked them why, hey, why do you want to establish this program? What's driving that? They said during their annual engagement survey, their clinicians said that they didn't feel connected. So they wanted to build this program to connect them to each other. I asked them to do a little bit exploring, because sometimes when you get survey results, it's like, what did they actually mean? What did the people need? So I asked them to go and do a listening project where they came back and they said, hey, we were wrong. It's not that the doctors and nurses and social workers didn't feel connected to each other. It's that they didn't feel connected to the business side of the company, right? So if we had gone forward without doing that additional level of discovery and figuring out what those learners' needs actually were, we actually would have done more harm than good. If we had built this program pairing the clinicians all together, but avoiding the other area of the business, they actually would have felt more disconnected. And so having this bit of information completely changed. So in this case, where they were thinking about a particular design, it was a design that actually wasn't going to help them achieve their results, and then maybe would have been worse than doing nothing at all. So we help you at Chronus. We understand all of those key decisions and all of those nuances in designing an effective program. And our strategic implementation consultants really help guide you through all of those decisions. All right, so the next step, or that's second step, design. So after you have figured out your why, what you want, all of that, you can start having the design conversations. Modern mentorship programs, unlike the old traditional programs, they use a variety of different formats and design decisions to help you reach your own your own company goals, objectives, or even solve an organizational challenge. So think about it like, let's go back to the recipe analogy. So unlike with baking, you pretty much have to follow, you have to level everything perfectly, you have to get the exact measurements to get the desired result. With cooking, you have a little bit more flexibility, right? You can adjust the ingredients to your liking or your personal dietary needs. If you avoid salt or you like salt, all of those things you can do within cooking. So building a mentoring program is a little bit like that. You can mix and match formats. You can, like one-on-one, reverse, groups, you can pick the one that is going to meet the needs for this particular program you're trying to design. You can determine what you want participants to focus on during the program. So for example, career mentoring programs usually focus on like career development skills, personal branding, interviewing, communication, those kind of skills. Whereas like leadership development programs will focus on some of those leadership skills. If you have a strong competency framework model within your organization, you might align your focus areas of your mentorship program to that. And that's what we can use in the matching to match people together. So for instance, if I was high potential talent and I was going into the early leadership program, I might say, I personally need to focus on my PowerPoint visual communication skills and storytelling, right? So within the program, because we've identified these areas of focus, we can actually pair me specifically with someone who said they have expertise in that area. And so it helps to build those skills and competencies, moving at more of an elevated program from just the more traditional mentoring programs where it would have been like, I'm just giving you guidance and kind of helping you along the way. So we're leveraging it a little bit different in different circumstances to make the most impact in your organization. Another program example, you might have a reverse mentoring program. It might focus around emerging technologies or even building generational gaps. So whatever the need is in your organization, we will help you understand the right format to help you meet those objectives that you have set. When you're making the design decisions, you want to be sure that you clearly define who your mentors and your mentees are that need to be invited or actively recruited into the program. So for example, if you want to use mentoring to boost employee retention between, say, years 1 and 3, your organization has a problem with retention in those first 3 years. And you want to ensure that the program is designed to meet the needs of that population and what do those learners need. And you probably want to do a listening project to figure out, or maybe exit interview information to figure out why our learners are people leaving during that first 3 years. And then you need to actively invite them to join the program. So one thing we know about people joining mentorship programs is that people who join programs are already your more engaged population naturally. So if you want to use, and more engaged people often lead to more retention, right? And so you want to make sure that you're targeting the population that is going to help you deliver the impact. If we only have the most engaged people, if we just send out a mass email and the most engaged people come to the program, we're really not going to boost our retention because we're not bringing the right people into the program. So it's really important that you think about who your target mentors and mentees are and bring them, actively recruit them into the program. And it sometimes needs to go, when you're thinking about your communication planning, like more than an email, right? More than just an email campaign. You may need to leverage HR business partners in your organization or key stakeholders or department leaders to bring the right people into the organization. All right, so after you've aligned and you've designed, then we can start cooking. This is all about launch. You've selected your menu, selected your ingredients. Then you can go into your launch planning. So your program design and your matching style will often drive a lot of how your launch goes. So there's a few decisions to be made, like, do you invite mentors first? Make sure that you've recruited enough mentors before you invite mentees. Do you allow them to join at the same time? Do you do the reverse of that? Our consultants can help you during the implementation process, make sure that you've thought through what is the right approach, and they can make recommendations for you based on your goals and objectives of your program. Take, for example, if you have a cohort program. So cohort program, meaning that everyone enrolls at the same time, they start mentoring at the same time, and they end at the same time. In that case, you might have a launch event at the beginning of the cohort that's going to generate excitement, help deliver the program details to them. You might talk about their expectations in the program. You might train them on how to use the Chronus platform. And actually, we come and do that for you. And then give them some training on how to effectively be in a mentoring partnership. So it's like a cohort program. But if your program is more of a open enrollment, sometimes we call them evergreen programs, that's meaning that participants, like, you just start the program and participants can enroll at any time, and mentees can select their own mentor by going through and finding a match for themselves. You need to plan those launch events differently. You need to do more frequent frequent launch events for people that are coming in at all the given points in time so that everyone gets the same level of information. And sometimes that might be maybe not a live event, but there might be some videos. So we can help you think through all of those things. And then in those kind of programs, you typically want to do more periodic recruitment. So you want to have like a quarterly recruitment strategy that you just execute over and over again to make sure that the program keeps getting new members and keeps being a healthy program. Our consultants will help you through all of those key decisions necessary to have a great program launch. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is guide. So remember we talked about low engagement, ghosted relationships. We didn't know what to do. They turned into coffee chat. Those are things that you might hear that might lead you to know that you need to make more of a guidance plan. So when you think about back to cooking, you can't just leave the pot, put all the ingredients in the pot, leave it on the stove, walk away. You should be stirring, you should be taste testing, you should be adjusting along the way. And that is really often a misstep that leads to some of those comments that you hear or negative outcomes in your program. We have within our platform best in class connection plans, program agendas. We have skill focused session guides. We've got many tools and resources and assessments to help ensure that your participants feel supported throughout the journey. And our platform is helping deliver those messages at the right time. So when you think about the cycle of a mentoring relationship, there's various stages, like you're building trust and rapport at first, you're setting goals, then you're progressing through your relationship, then you're winding down, and then you're figuring out how to conclude the relationship and move on from it. And we've taken the approach where we're helping you deliver through the platform the guidance that is needed at each of those stages. And the platform is full of tools and resources in order to do that. All right, so after you have picked out your, set your mood for your event, you've picked out your recipes, you have mixed and matched your ingredients, you have done the cooking, you have stirred and adjusted. Now is the time to serve and savor the reaction. So this is the time for you to measure your results. Now, when you think about mentoring program design or alignment, the first thing that we did was talk about goals and objectives. And so many programs never circle back. If you want the maximum stakeholder engagement for your programs, you're going to want to talk to stakeholders about the return on investment that their program is bringing to you. That's how they kind of think in terms of like, okay, what impact financially is it bringing to the organization? And so if you say the program is going to boost engagement or retention or productivity, we want to try to find ways to report that. And there's a lot of different ways within the platform where you can do that. And if you have a connection with your HRIS system into the Chronus platform, then we can measure that engagement. We can see who's in mentoring and who's leaving and who's not from a retention perspective. And the good thing about our platform too is we're able to provide some benchmarks. So based on all of the collective millions of mentors and mentees who have gone through our platform over time, collecting all of that data and then being able to bring some benchmarking. So you can kind of see within the platform, how is my program doing compared to other programs of this type and style. So you can kind of help you monitor that health of your overall program. Our customer service, my team, our customer experience managers, they will help you collect feedback, be able to understand that, analyze the data, make recommendations for improvements for your program, monitor progress along the way, and absolutely celebrate successes and help you create those success stories to share with your key stakeholders. Okay, so we know a lot of times you make a recipe and then you say when you're eating it, you're like, I would have done this, or I would have done that. Next time I'm going to add a little more salt, or next time I'm going to, add a little more cream, whatever your personal preferences are. So successive mentorship programs comes with balancing those right ingredients. You do follow the recipe, the 5-step process, but don't be afraid to innovate, to adjust, to make sure that you're making those small adjustments along the way so people can have the best relationships. And then if your program's a cohort program, between the cohorts is a really good time to evaluate how it went and what do I need to change. I think thinking about it like mentoring like cooking is really about creating these meaningful experiences. And what I will tell you is that the needs and the experience that you want to create will change over time. And so oftentimes we have programs that we're running on our platform where we see, the engagement starts to taper off, or they're not getting as many people in the program as they used to, or not getting the results they used to get. And so we're monitoring programs cohort over cohort or over time to make sure that when we see some of those things, those metrics start to move in a direction that we don't want, that we're really helping engage you in, hey, here's what we're seeing and here's what we think you can do about it. Because organizations change all the time. The situation changes, the economy changes, your needs change and your goals and directions. And we want to make sure that we're always helping you stay aligned with those with your mentorship program. All right. So sometimes, even when you are doing all the things, there are some things that might go awry. And so this might be happening to you today if you have a program already. And it might happen to you if you're building a new program with us. And that's why we're closely monitoring your program as soon as we start it. It's one of the values that we bring to you is you don't have to go it alone. We're here to walk through every step of the way with you. One of those things is program adoption. So if you are experiencing enrollment that's different than you thought it would be, or over time your enrollment is dropping off, again, we'll help you go back and we'll walk you through that 5-step process again. So is the program meeting an employee need? Is it meeting an organizational need? Did I invite the right people to the program? How am I engaging stakeholders? Stakeholders are probably, I would say, one of the top 2 things that you need to have a successful mentorship program. So if you don't have stakeholders bought in, then it becomes more difficult to keep a healthy program because they're not bought into helping people or encouraging people to have the time to go in and stay in the mentorship program. And so a good balance is to have a portion of your time dedicated to doing the responsibilities of your job, a portion of time dedicated towards your team, but then there's also a portion of time that should be dedicated to your own learning and development. And that makes a really good kind of recipe for success for employees. And so you want to make sure that you're doing the work to engage stakeholders. We do have some courses on how to engage. If you're a customer of ours, we do have a course on how to engage stakeholders and just help you walk through creating that stakeholder assessment, figuring out who your influencers are, who's a proponent of mentoring, who's not, and then a plan to how to develop a plan to engage those stakeholders. Training is another big one. If you're not providing training to your mentors and mentees, their relationships may turn into some of those just more informal or coffee chat type relationships. Training helps boost people's understanding of both the process of mentoring, like what are the steps I should take? What are the motions that I do? Mentees, I should set an agenda a couple days before. I should send it to the mentor. They should plan for the meeting, that kind of thing. But also the core skills for mentoring. So there's a couple core skills. They're actually leadership skills too. So they're good ones for people to learn. And those are skills like active listening, how to give feedback, how to have crucial conversations. We do have a full suite of training e-courses that are available right within our platform. when you become a customer with us, you talk to your account executive about that, and we can get those right in and kind of dripping that content along to your learners at the moment that they might need it. And then the last thing is to integrate mentoring with other talent programs. And so oftentimes mentoring is seen as like a separate initiative, like we're just going to have mentoring, we're going to do mentoring. And it's not something that is integrated with other talent programs. And so when you're thinking about an overall talent strategy or an overall leadership development strategy, you want to make sure mentoring is integrated in there. So it's not like this standalone thing that seems like it's something extra or more work, that it's just part of the experience. And we can help you understand where that right place to put mentoring is, and how it can help, how you kind of build the business case around how it can help you be more successful in terms of for instance, in a leadership development program, if you go to the workshops or the in-person training, oftentimes they're really great. People are energized when they come out of them, but then they go back to their desk and they don't have a way to, one, focus in on the individual area where they might need additional information, help, support, or development. And also, those training classes alone often don't have a way for the participants to apply their learnings right away. And so mentoring can help with that. It can help that with that practical application. It can help them get personalized attention where one person may need additional help in one area and another person need help in another area. So talk to us about how to integrate mentoring into your other programs. All right. Overcoming engagement issues. So this does happen from time to time. I think we need to be really clear in mentorship programs about what are the roles and responsibilities, but also what are the benefits? What are the benefits for mentors and for mentees? And mentors oftentimes mentor recruitment is often the biggest challenge, more so than mentees. So you often have an imbalance in that area. But the research shows that mentors often get the most benefit from the mentoring relationship in terms of the organizational impacts, right? So it's important that mentors understand that, yes, they are giving to another person where someone has given to them. So kind of the pay it forward kind of mentality, but also mentors are able to clearly demonstrate their leadership capabilities to the organization. It helps them hone their leadership skills if they need that, right? And so doing that kind of social learning aspect really helps them, and also shows that they're engaged in the organization, which can always just, help with their own career development. Another area, if you having engagement issues, would be to make sure that you're facilitating goal setting and you're helping participants set the expectations for their relationship right at the outset. So we help you with making sure that we're facilitating a mentoring. The first meeting should really be around talking about some of those, getting to know each other, but also talking about some of those kind of nuances of the mentoring relationship. So how often are we going to meet? What is my preferred communication style? When can you contact me outside of the mentoring relationship? Some people are okay with like, hey, pop in anytime, send me a message anytime if you have a question in between meetings. And other mentors are more like, hey, contact me on, Friday afternoon and I'll answer your questions then. It just depends on what works for them. And establishing those kind of rules of engagement can help build that trust and confidentiality, but also can help set the expectation for how you're going to manage the relationship going forward. I think goal setting is also a big one. If you're running an informal program, a lot of times people don't set goals and then they don't know what they're working towards. And that's where you're going to see them, comments like, we didn't know what to talk about anymore because they weren't actively working towards a goal that the mentee has set for that relationship. And then the other thing is to provide a mechanism for relationship review. And so at various points throughout the relationship, we help facilitate a conversation between the mentors and mentees to see how it's going. And so we've got some guidebooks that help prepare for that conversation by doing some self-reflection and thinking about the relationship. And then we facilitate the conversation about midpoint of the relationship to give feedback. And it's not just the mentor giving feedback to the mentee, it's also the mentee giving feedback about how's the relationship going for them. And it's kind of this mutually beneficial learning conversation. And then we also help you do that at the beginning to think about what you need when you're coming into the relationship and at the end. The hope is that someone in a relationship continues on in mentoring, either by the mentee becoming a mentor themselves, or mentors just persisting with always working with a mentee to develop them. So some of these kind of things, structure along that relationship can really help make those relationships more successful. All right, so you guys as administrators or mentoring program managers, one of the things that you're going to want to do in your program is you're going to want to establish a 360 feedback mechanism. So regular feedback loops between employees and the program promote engagement and improvement. And it's not just always talking to people who are in the program. It's also talking to people who didn't join the program. So you can get as much information as you can from, hey, why didn't you choose to participate in the program, as you can from the people in the program, and get feedback on how that program is going and how you can improve it. And so developing that feedback loop, our platform can deliver surveys at various points in time, and we'll help you make those recommendations for what you should be asking at each point in the relationship and what to do with that information. Our customer experience managers will help prepare that some insights from that data that we're collecting and give you information. But also outside of the survey, you can be talking to people either through focus groups, either through other surveys with people who didn't join the program, by going and talking to individual business areas, other leaders. So make sure that you're collecting information in a variety of ways to really help you get the kind of whole picture that you need to keep adjusting your program over time. All right. This is true, actually. A poor experience is sometimes worse than having no program at all. So you might be thinking that some mentoring programs, that any mentoring is better than no mentoring, and it's not true. I have found that really well-crafted programs help you deliver the impacts, and sometimes ones that are not designed to meet anyone's needs in the organization often just kind of fall apart. But if you have a program that is kind of just chugging along and you want to improve it, we can help you breathe new life into those programs and make sure that they're designed well to fit the needs of your organization and your employees. Okay, so I've talked a lot about our different elements of our system as we're going through the process and what our platform can actually do for you. But coming out of the world of like mentorship strategy itself, I always like to say we're more than a software vendor. So we have been working over the last year really hard to develop a new approach to strategic program development. And this is what is setting us apart as an organization. That is our strategic partnerships, where we are helping you develop your programs using our strategic design implementation managers. We are providing you thought leadership along the journey. We also have managed services. So if you are a organization that maybe doesn't have the capacity to run a program like this, we do have some managed services where some of our customer experience managers can kind of act on your behalf of your program and do some of that administrative work for you. And then also professional services. So if there's an instance where you maybe need help figuring out what are the right programs for your organization and what are the priorities that in which you would want to implement those, we can also help you with that. And I have to give a shout out to our marketing team here. They do an awesome job of helping us develop cutting edge resources, blogs, white papers, webinars like this, admin training, toolkits. We really are keeping up on the latest trends and best practices in mentoring and the employee connection space. We've got other products too that I think Nyla's going to talk about in a few minutes, really focused on that employee connection and talent development areas. All right. We also, as I alluded to, have a full suite of in-platform training courses for mentees, and we have 11 courses for people like you guys who are designing or thinking about designing mentorship programs to learn anything from how to create the strategy, how to design impactful programs, how to match, how to launch, how to measure, all along that recipe for success. We're guiding you all throughout that. All right, at Chronus, we believe that organizations only reach their greatest potential when their people do. And we are all about helping you create connective workplaces where people thrive in your organization. So that is all the content that I had today. I'm going to throw it back over to Nyla. Nyla, and she'll give you a little bit more information about Chronus.
Jodi, thank you so much for the insightful presentation. I surely learned a lot, and I hope each one of you gained a new perspective on how to build an impactful mentoring program that can transform your workplace. So we are getting ready to move on to the audience Q&A session, but first we wanted to give you a little more information about who we are at Chronus and what our focus is. So at Chronus, as Jodi just touched on, we truly believe that organizations only reach their greatest potential when their people do. And we do this by helping organizations create connected workplaces where people can thrive. So we put employees in the driver's seat of their development, and we do this by centering on purpose. In our approach, purpose-driven development is fueled by 3 key aspects that research says makes employees feel more fulfilled. And that goes along with relationships. It goes along with impact and also growth. And with purpose at the core, we deliver our approach through these solutions. But also, we have the solutions of mentoring, employee resource groups, onboarding, and purpose conversations. We also have sponsorships and more. So now that you guys know more about Chronus and what we do, we would love to go to the Q&A section and start answering some of your guys' questions. So let's see what we have in the Q&A section. I'll start with Melissa Moore, who had a question early on for Jodi. And it says, I've discovered from stakeholders that there are informal happenings of mentoring that may provide the outcomes desired. And knowing people's capacity for anything new right now is at a minimum, how could Chronus help bring structure to existing work? What would be some good tips on how to do an audit of your business to assess all informal mentoring happenings in your organizations? And are there any tips for tracking that? So this is more of a 3-part question, Jodi.
Yeah, thank you. I did this exact thing I worked at a large healthcare organization. We had roughly 50,000 employees. And we did this. We took an inventory of everything that was happening, both those like informal relationships, but more so sort of informal programs that were happening because we didn't have at the time, like we were moving towards having kind of an enterprise framework for mentoring. And like you, we needed to know what was going on. And so we did that. I actually had developed, we did first a survey to capture what the programming was. So people submitted the survey. We worked with our HR business partners to go, ask around in their business units to find out what was going on. And then I had an intern and an admin who would go in and actually have conversations with all of those programs to collect more information. Why do you have a program? What are you doing in it? How are you measuring success? Do you have documents? How's it going? What challenges are you having? And so we took all that information and then we synthesized it. And outcomes of that conversation, or that whole effort, were we made a couple of decisions based on that information. One, if there was a program that was running really well and could be scaled across the organization to more people to have more impacts, we did that. We also created an enterprise-wide program that anyone could join for just general career mentoring. And we used some of the learnings from the other kind of pop-up career mentoring programs that we found in our organization. Now, those individual department programs were shut down so that those learners could join the new program. So that was the second thing we did. And then sometimes we combine programs. So if we saw because we're a really big organization, so if we saw a really big thing happening over here in the regional sales group, and then there was something happening over here in the East sales group, we oftentimes combined those and then just made a whole company sales program that would meet the learning needs for the sales team. And so those are some things that you could do to capture that information. The informal kind of relationships, I'm just mentoring Nyla on the side. We didn't give direction to them to stop doing that, but we did invite those people to join, kind of get their information in and start joining the formal program. When you consider time, it's always a challenge, right? People only have a limited number of hours in the day, and people are super busy. We're asking people all the time to do more with less, and all of that. What I have found is that mentorship really doesn't take a lot of time. It is for mentors, 2 to 3 hours a month. For mentees might be a little bit more than that, but they're working on some of those things. Some of that time is working on things during their actual working day and not in their job. So theirs is maybe an hour more, so 3 to 5, something like that. I think being really strong about what your business case is for your stakeholders to buy into mentoring. What can I deliver back to the organization in dollars and cents with mentoring? And then for people to be engaged, it's really about those benefits. And it's the kind of that triad, that stakeholder really promoting to those employees, nominating people, going and talking to people, getting people engaged. And then the company has to have a culture of allowing people time for learning and development, right? All of the research and data shows that mentorship is important and brings really positive, both financial and people outcomes to your organization. And so it's just about kind of figuring out, from a cultural perspective, where are our areas culturally that we can leverage in order to promote mentorship, and then addressing some of the red flags and doing that assessment before you even dive in. What are the red flags? How are we going to care for those? And that's all part of that kind of strategic planning process that we can help guide you through.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question for Melissa, and I'm sure others in the chat as well. So Jamie also had a question about communication. Her question was, how do you communicate those office hours? And do you communicate it through intranet announcements on Chronus? Because she's wanting to do something similar.
Mm-hmm. There's a variety of different ways that you can do it. So you can absolutely do it in platform. You can do it via an announcement. You could do it via a message that will send out an email. We also, within our we call it the connection plan, which is basically the guidance plan. There's a section for you to put your program office hours in there, so people can, it's right at the top, so people can see it all the time. You could do messaging across the screen. And so there's a variety of different ways. However, I also think that you need to meet learners with these communications in their preferred learning style. And so I wouldn't discount, even though we have a lot of good tools in the platform, I wouldn't discount like doing a Slack message or Teams or whatever, WebEx or whatever you guys are using. And then make sure that you're making sure that your HR business partners and stakeholders are aware so they can make announcements during their department meetings as well.
Awesome. Last question for you, Jodi. And you've mentioned this earlier on in the presentation about making sure you have that stakeholder and leadership buy-in. So this question is, what strategies have you seen work best for engaging stakeholders and ensuring their support and promoting a mentoring program?
Yeah. Again, this is like mission critical, right? So the first thing that I recommend that you do is assess your stakeholders. Go talk to stakeholders, figure out what is their interest in mentoring. Are they going to be a promoter or a detractor for the program based on what you know during those conversations? Talk to other people about stakeholders. Do you think they're going to be a promoter or a detractor? And the other thing is, what kind of influence do they have in your organization? You could have a detractor, big detractor, but they're not an influencer in the organization, so you don't really need to worry about them. But if you have a huge influencer who is a detractor, then you need to do things with them, right? And so it's analyzing that, like who do we have, who do we not have, and then it's leveraging the people that you have to promote your program and to help bring some of those maybe detractor high influencers along. And that's done through just like creating a stakeholder engagement plan. It can be through communications. The way that you communicate with people, the information that you give them needs to also speak to them. So when you're talking to your key or critical stakeholders, you can learn about what's important for them. And I would say that at a stakeholder level overall, especially if it's like the executives, they care about money, right? They're here to make the company profitable, make the organization successful, whatever your goals or your mission is, and making sure that you're able to show them those results and what your program is going to deliver back is going to be as impactful as any of the or softer things that it might do for the organization. So really try to focus, and we can really help you get there to talk about how do we create that business case for mentoring? How do we bring people along and both give them all the information that they need to make a decision about the program? It's a little bit of an education too, if I got to circle back here, because oftentimes when you think mentoring, especially for at the executive level, it's like, oh, I know about mentoring. It's the traditional one-on-one, bring someone up in my own image, right? And so it might be a little re-education process about what you're actually trying to do, and especially impactful if you can talk about it in as part of an overall strategy or align it with something that your organization wants to do that's meaningful for them. So let's say you know that your organization has a problem with manager effectiveness. So you have, your early managers, your first time managers, that that's a problem, and you're working on an overall development plan. Make mentoring a part of that, right? A part of that journey, because that's something that the organization, the stakeholders are going to care about. Oh, they're going to help fix manager effectiveness. Awesome. We need that, right? Versus, oh, they want to start a mentoring program. I'm really focused over here on manager effectiveness. So, you kind of get how you can start to tell that story.
Jodi, thank you so much. And to everyone that's out there watching the webinar, thank you so much for joining. So I know you guys are probably thinking about, what's next? What can we do? So a couple of things that you can do that's, that should be next up on your agenda is to connect with Jodi on LinkedIn. Outside of connecting with Jodi on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to Chronus. If you want to learn how we're helping to build mentoring programs for some of the world's largest organizations. And then also in that doc section in the right upper hand corner of your screen, check out our national mentoring resources. We have a ton of resources, and we want you guys to utilize them so you can build a mentoring program that can transform your workplace as well. We also have another webinar on January 22nd that we would love for you guys to attend and be at. And with that being said, I thank you all for joining. Jodi, thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us today. And we will be in touch within the next 24 hours to share the recording of the event. You guys have an awesome day.
Thanks, guys. Bye.